are you gonna do?
All right, you're live. All right.
Host, what's up? Welcome
Not a trial and tribulation.
technical trials and tribulations, but finally we made it. So sorry guys, if anyone's anticipating a 9 a.m. sharp start, we apologize. We ran into some technical difficulties, but welcome to another episode of Courage to Continue, from test to testimonials. So Jose, today we're going to be having Todd Wiggin, a friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years now, and he is going to be sharing his story. Hopefully, it'll inspire others and motivate others to just continue to, having them keep their chin up and moving forward, and just understanding that adversity is simply a part of life, and that you don't overcome even the most seemingly insurmountable obstacles that life throws at you.
Absolutely. I think so. You're coming through a little bit of an echo. So if Todd is ready, I think we should just get right into Todd's story. I'm gonna pull him in. All right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, Todd. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Todd. Talk. Do I hear you? You're light. Put it around the mouth.
How's that?
There you go. There you go.
All right. Well,
What's
we'll
up,
make
Todd?
this happen one way or another. I'm doing well. Yeah, I had a little bit of a late night last night, but it was good. So yeah,
I think Jose could say the same thing. He had a late night as well.
Yeah.
That's why we're so late.
Yeah. We'll make it work.
So Todd, I wanted, we were talking last week, and you said a couple of things that resonated with me, man. You shared a story that you had experienced recently, and you said how it moved you and how it kind of changed your perspective on life, the defining incident. And then you also mentioned, when you're going through some tough times, sometimes you got to fake it to make it. And, those thoughts really resonated with me. I wanted you to kind of expand upon, some of these recent experiences and how it influenced the way you're thinking and how you see the world.
So yeah, I think it's interesting. I was thinking about what I could have prepared for this versus what would be more impromptu. Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Right, I'm gonna hold it real close. All right, so yeah, I've been thinking about what to prepare for this and what to just kind of go off the cuff. And I think to premise it, I think there are parts of life that are a sprint, and there are parts of life that are marathon. And I think sometimes for the sprint part, that's where you have to fake it before you make it. Because you have to get that first step forward and just go. You have to make a decision. You have to put your best foot forward and see how that works out. But I think for the long haul, certainly with my life story and what I've learned is that authenticity is really what's most important. And that's the marathon, is just being an authentic person and putting yourself out there. Just going to switch hands for a sec. So I think the situation that we're in right now, with just everybody's lives being upended, has really it's initiated a lot of change for a lot of people, and definitely for me. And I think that your story that you're talking about is while I was rock climbing back in August, I witnessed the tragic death of a young woman, 25 years old. Um, that she died while rock climbing, and I watched her life just slip from her body, and it was a traumatic experience. It went from being one of the most beautiful, like kind of magical days to being, uh, yeah, traumatic and disturbing, and it did remind me how life is short, and there were things I was doing in my life where I wasn't being my authentic self, and I had gotten off track from my path, and um, yeah, the first step there was to I was actually lying to my girlfriend about climbing that day, and which was like a whole other spin of like a web of lies, and very quickly that got out of control. So I had to reel that back in because that's not my path. I'm really trying to be an open and honest person and put my thoughts and feelings out there to people. So yeah, I lied to her. I said that I was coming home from the Home Depot that night rather than telling her that I just witnessed a tragic death. And that was a real eye opener. I was like, all right, something's got to change here. So it took me another 4 or 5 days to come clean. And that has certainly it set a whole different set of life events in motion for me. And it's a new chapter now. And so, um, yeah, there's been some adversity and it's been challenging. And yeah, I have to put my best step forward sometimes, my best foot forward, and take that first step.
You know, I'm sorry that you have to witness that. That's definitely uh, traumatizing to see a life being taken away. Um, you know, do you think that sometimes we need to we need to taste bitterness in order to appreciate the sweetness that life can give you? That oftentimes we become blind to because we become distracted by things and we start convoluting our mind with things that don't allow us to appreciate what we do have in front of us. Like that experience, for example, did it make you realize, wow, life is that fragile? I better appreciate what I have in front of me right now because at any moment it could be taken away. I know for me, these past 6 months, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this platform, is because I've seen how fragile life is. And, prior to that, I was certainly victim of it, but I was one to like perseverate over things that I didn't have or that I wanted, and I wasn't appreciating the things that were in front of me. Essentially, gratitude. So, did this help you with just expressing a higher level of gratitude for the things that you do in fact have? And just to give you that appreciation of life.
I think it's two-sided because on one hand, a relationship that I was in for 3+ years ended, and so um, I think yeah, certainly not having her in my life anymore made me appreciate what she did bring to the table. But there were reasons why we broke up, and so I had to think about that too, and hold on to that. Uh, I think what it made me realize though was that yeah, life is super short, super fragile. Um, that on one hand, it's really important to have all these experiences, whether they be adventurous, whether they be making really deep, sincere connections with people. That life can be a combination of all of that, but it doesn't have to be all goal driven. I think that's a lot of where what I've been taking a step back from the last couple of months is like to kind of put the whole goal thing aside a bit for now and just be as present as possible. Um, that yeah, I have some hopes and dreams and aspirations. I have some ideals, but that I need to just yeah, be honest with people, make connections. Like that conversation that we had the other week was great, and I've had so many of those over the last couple months. So it's been right now, it's where it's like one door closed and then a whole bunch others have opened up. And I think that that's exciting about life, being curious and being optimistic. That's super important.
And Todd, you said the fake it till you make it. What exactly you said that you do that when you find that your life you're sprinting? What do you mean exactly by fake it till you make it?
Well,
What does that mean?
we don't always feel great on the inside, but excuse me, hold on one second. I'm sorry. Yeah, even though you may not be feeling great on the inside, that there's still there's still something positive to hold on to, and so to grasp onto that and run with that in the beginning, and then see what see what doors open with that, see what opportunities you can find. Because if you just if you just hold on to how you feel on the inside and you can't project a little bit of positivity out there, then you're probably not going to attract much good stuff in your life. So you have to sometimes, you have to fake it a little bit. You may be feeling like crap on the inside,
I
but
got
um,
I
taking that
understand.
first,
So what? Yeah. So you mean faking it through the bad emotions, making sure that you always have presence of mind and positivity. It's kind of what you're getting at, correct? I don't want to speak
yeah,
for you, but yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Find something positive to hold on to for sure, and just a lot of what I've been seeing lately about people who have been following their hopes and dreams and their goals is that they really have no clue what they're doing when they first get started. They they just take that first step, and then through their trials and tribulations, their failures, they learn. They're from their successes, they continue to move forward towards their dreams. And I think that's the main message that I want to put across is that you have to take that step, that first step, and then things will fall into place. Is the audio bad? Is that why you're rolling your eyes there, right? Uh,
Hello, you hear me?
yeah, there we go.
Now we
Yeah,
can.
I didn't want to cut you off,
Okay.
but yeah, you just, I
No,
sorry.
no, no, I'm
This is
listening,
going,
and
this is going great.
I think I like to connect the dots, right? I like to synthesize what you're saying and what others say with like everyday things, and in a lot of ways, that's what entrepreneurship is. It's like the willingness to um, the willingness to take a leap of faith, to make a calculated risk, but not knowing with certainty what may happen. And so, in a lot of ways, you have to, take that leap or and fake it till you make it. You may not know if you have what it takes to start this journey, but it starts somewhere, and there has to be some level of faith, some level of concern, and just this element that things may not pan out the way you want them to, but you still have to start somewhere. Every journey has a beginning, and oftentimes that beginning of the journey starts with trepidation, with fear. And that's what entrepreneurship is. It's that willingness to take that leap of faith, not knowing what may come out. And you can take just that very definition of what an entrepreneur is and just apply it to life. And you know, any journey that people embark on, you may not know what a relationship may materialize in, or we may not know, you know, what this educational pursuit that someone is making may materialize into. But you got to just take that first step, and you know, hope for the best. Sometimes plan for the worst, but you got to at least make that first step. And, you know, that's how I kind of connect.
No, and I like the way you put it, Tom, because you explained that and looking at it as a sprint, right? There's certain situations that you got to look at as a sprint because the reality of that situation may be extremely dark, right? For the moment, right? So you got to think through it because the reality that present moment it is what it is. So you got to think through that. Make sure that you have the mindset that you're in a marathon. That's just a moment in it. You're going to see through it, and that hope, I think, is what helps out. It helps out in getting through these situations. I like the way you put that.
Yeah, a couple of things that I have to say just real quick are two things I heard in there. One was talking about fear, and then the other is expectations. And so I've had a lot of experiences lately with both, and it's been really refreshing because I've been looking at things from a different perspective. And one thing is that with fear, I think fear is useful and that it can prevent us at times from getting ourselves started into a situation where we could really end up in real danger, you know. And so it does force us to take a step back and evaluate and do a risk assessment, like you said, Ivan. And then the other thing lately, what I've really been trying to focus on is just taking expectations out of the equation as much as possible. And what that's allowing for me to do is be a lot less anxious as I'm getting into a new situation. And then, being either pleasantly surprised or that's on the plus side. But at the very least, not being disappointed, you know, because if I don't have an expectation about how a situation is going to play out, then I can't be disappointed by it. But all I can be is pleasantly surprised if I take expectations out.
You know, it's very interesting because we always want to create goals. Do you hear me? Jose, did you unmute me? Okay. So goals are very important for many reasons, you know, for so many reasons, personal, professional, spiritual. But sometimes in creating goals, it causes you to kind of remove yourself from the now, right? Because you're projecting forward. And I think that while goal setting is important, it's important to kind of modulate how much time you're spending on what may be and kind of immerse yourself as much as possible in the now. I think that, and I find it fascinating that our human brain is so highly evolved that sometimes put ourselves in places that aren't in the now. Like we ruminate about past a lot. You know, that's just a very common thing that humans do, or we perseverate about what may come in the future. You know, and it could be good and bad. It could be goal setting, but it could be also worrying. I once heard worrying is like praying to the devil. So you got to be. I think it's almost therapeutic to hear you say that you know you're living a life at least now without many expectations, because it has like a calming, a soothing feeling to not expect anything and just appreciate what comes, whether it's good or bad. You just take it as it comes, and that has a very calming effect, at least for me.
Yeah, and so yeah, I've been sober for almost 5 years, and in the rooms of the 12-step programs, you oftentimes hear that the past is usually depressing because it's either something bad happened and you have remorse about it, or something good happened but you no longer have it. And so that can be depressing to look back on the past too much, and then the future, looking forward to that, can be very anxiety provoking. And so the magic place, the place of flow, like the place of where life really feels good, is in the now. And I mean, it's cliche, and you hear it all the time, but it's really hard to put it into practice. And so I think um, examining how you feel throughout the day and what you're thinking about, and seeing if there are expectations in there, like that's one way that I can um, help stay in the present. It's really, especially when it comes to things that I'm about to get into. Yeah, I'm a lot less anxious going into that. And I apologize, the leaf blower guy is is now working his way over to me.
I got the same issue happening over here as well. That's why I'm muting the mic. We have a lot of technical stuff going on this week.
Yeah, this is not the
Like real
podcast ever, but
I know.
okay. I really feel like this is such a pure example of fake it until we make it, right?
Yeah, right.
It's just funny how that works out, but it's like that's what we're doing right now. And
you're right. You're right, Todd. So,
where are you now? How are you reconciling at the present time your recent experiences? How has it influenced you at this moment? Like, has it influenced any of your behaviors, your actions? Has it made you realize that you want to do things now and not kind of push them off? The recent climbing experience, how has that influenced you in the now as we speak?
Well, it's been interesting because it certainly has put the brakes on quite a bit. And when it came to climbing in particular, like pre-COVID, I had some real goals as far as climbing for this season. And how that young woman passed away, she was doing something called trad climbing, which is where you have a lot of gear clipped to your harness, and you place that gear in the rock as you go up. You clip the rope into it, and if you fall, that's what's supposed to keep you safe if the gear is placed properly. So I had some big goals with that before COVID, and yeah, I've stopped trad climbing for now, for sure. So like that's like for the time being, and it's just also part of it just not being in good enough shape physically and mentally to do it. In the beginning, I would say for the first month after I witnessed that, I was pretty hypomanic. I was anxious, and yeah, I was in a sprint, and not in a healthy way. And so like I have been able, through prayer and meditation and a lot of conversation, a lot of reflection, I've been able to get back on an even keel. Yeah, I feel a hell of a lot better, for sure. It's but yeah, I think it's, as I said before, one door closed for sure, and maybe some others too. But in that whole process, a whole bunch more have opened. I've met some family members that I had never met before, or hadn't seen them for 30 plus years. I've yeah, I've just met a lot of people, been doing some online dating, and taking the expectations out of that equation, and really looking to make sincere connections, make friendships, put myself out there, put my story out there, be open and honest, and that's been really refreshing. Like I'm not. Yeah, I can't say I'm faking it until I make it with the Dean, because actually what it was the first month, I was like, I'm gonna be off this in a month. I bought like the premium version of Tinder, and I was like, I'm gonna sprint through this. I'm gonna go on a ton of dates, and I'm gonna make this happen. And then very quickly I realized that wasn't the case, and so I've turned this whole process much more into a marathon, and the marathon is the authenticity. Like my path is the truth, and just as long as I'm being honest with myself and others, I find that the quality of my life is exponentially better. So I think that's the main message I really want to put out there, since the podcast is about faking it until you make it. Like I guess I made it. I faked whatever I had to fake during that time, and try to make it seem like I wasn't going crazy, but I was. So I guess that's my most recent way to apply this whole concept.
That's awesome.
When we go through tough times, it's not common that our mind starts to race, and you develop like these rituals or these mechanisms to calm your brain from working. You mentioned meditation. You mentioned just going out into walks and stuff like that. You're not climbing anymore. But tell me a little bit more about that meditation piece. Like, what are some of the things that you do day to day just to calm down the racing mind?
Yeah, you and I were talking about this last week, and certainly breathing exercises are the most effective way. So 2 techniques that I like to use is to take a nice deep, long 5-second breath in, take an extra sip of air at the top, hold it in for about 5 seconds, and then slowly let it out. And I find that after 3 or 4 cycles of that, all that cortisol that's pumping out of my adrenal system, or wherever it comes from, you could probably explain that a whole lot better. That's your side, Ivan. But the cortisol, it suddenly gets overtaken by oxytocin. And by taking those deep breaths in and holding them, I can have a pretty immediate calming effect. It's not going to solve the problem at that moment, but it really, from a physiological standpoint, it calms me down, and that's the first step. And then for me, through my whole process with the 12 steps, being connected to a higher power. For me, God is the universe, and that the universe is that's my creator, and I'm just a really microscopic speck of dust in all this, but I could still make my problems or my feelings seem like they're really important. and they are, they are to me, but they're not that important. All lives are precious, and we have opportunities to do something really special in our lives, and to help others, and that's where the power is, and that's where a lot of positivity comes from. I've been trying to do 3 good deeds a day, and that's been really helpful as well. That's a great tool right there. That's been a game changer.
So are you still getting out in nature? Does that have a soothing effect on? Is that something that you still are doing?
Yeah, big time. Every day. I although with this weather, the past, I think you're on mute there. I didn't hear what you said.
Am I on now? No, what I was saying is, are you still out in nature? Are you still like hiking or doing anything like that outdoors?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
how,
Yeah.
how does that, how does it modulate your stress, if at all?
Mhm. Um, I've been doing it so long that I think it's just such a part of me, you know, and I really need cardio. I need to burn that energy. And I wanted to talk about energy earlier, but it didn't seem like an organic place to put it. But um, it's really important to pace out how we use our energy, and I think that's a big part of this whole sprint versus marathon. And so for me, getting out in nature is about just using up the excess energy that I have left in that day, or if it's in the beginning of the day, creating that spark and then using that energy, carrying it through. Um, you know, being out in nature has incredible meditative effects. I know that there are all kinds of scientific studies about the effects that it has on blood pressure. Um, and people have really been using that, you know, like through this whole COVID thing. I'm seeing a lot more people out in nature than there used to be. They're kind of like the Johnny come latelys, and I was pissed about it at first, but because they're like on my stomping grounds or whatever. But yeah, it's good to see that people are using nature and just exercise and getting out. You can't go to strip malls anymore and indoor gyms or whatever they were doing before all of this, but now they're figuring it out. So yeah, it's
You
good.
know, fear is a tough thing, right? I think it's like a human trait that we have. It's a mechanism that keeps us alive. If we don't have fear, we're bound to take risks that could lead to our death. And so in some ways, fear can immobilize us. But how can we use fear in your experience to kind of catapult us in a positive direction?
And yeah, and I think I got a little off track with all that too. So I'm glad that you're kind of bringing that back up because you made me get my train of thought back to where it should be as far as fear goes. So fear prevents us from making bad decisions. However, once you make that decision and you take that first step forward, if you let fear kick in, then it can have some really detrimental effects. And that's where taking deep breaths, doing some meditation, getting that anxiety down, and focusing and getting into a flow state. That is so crucial. Especially, I do a lot of outdoor adventure sports, and yeah, if you're afraid while you're doing something, there's a really good chance that you're gonna get messed up. Like fear once you're in motion will never ever prevent you from getting hurt ever. So fear is only useful when you're still. When you're still before you take that step. Once you take that leap of faith, or once you make that split second decision to go, you gotta ditch the fear, or you could end up really messed up.
Um, in the line of work that I do, there's a term that's called kinesiophobia. Kinesiophobia, which is the fear of movement. And what happens is that people that have an injury or are dealing with pain, oftentimes will develop some level of kinesiophobia. And what is interesting is that research has shown that the fear of movement will lead to apprehension, and also leads to compromising the long-term well-being of the individual, because as a consequence of not moving, their whole being becomes even more sensitized. And so as a result of not moving, their body starts to essentially atrophy. It starts to become afraid, and because it's not exercising the mind and the body, it starts to atrophy, and we become more sensitized to the environment. And ironically, it creates this chronic perpetual cycle of pain, fear, and apprehension. So it's always interesting to hear another person's view of how they reconcile fear, and how oftentimes fear is really self-imposed, and how there's a distinction between fear and imminent danger. There's a distinction between the two. Imminent danger is not fear. Fear, a lot of times, is self-created, self-imposed.
So that's why I love having conversations with you, Ivan, is because being a very physically active person, I do accumulate injuries. It happens. And a story I could share about how I was experiencing atrophy was a couple of years ago. I had a ski accident that should have been pretty routine. You know, I caught some air. I ended up kind of in the back seat, and rather than like roll the windows down, which is where you like crank your arms forward and try to get your body weight back forward again so that you don't land on the back of your skis, I just bailed on it. I was like, it wasn't a good idea for me to try to get control of that particular jump. So I bailed on it and just let my body relax and collapse to the ground. And it would have been a very textbook wipeout, you know, beautiful yard sale, like gear going everywhere. But what happened was I landed on my ski, and I did so in a way that it nailed the outside of my knee, the binding, and I sprained my MCL. And over time, I had stopped. It was creaky, it was cracking, it hurt, and I stopped using that knee. I really slowed down quite a bit. I was like, I guess, you know, I was about 40 at the time. So I was like, I guess, you know, this is it. You know, I had a good run of like being able to perform at a pretty high level, doing a lot of activities, and I was slowing down quickly. And started doing some yoga, and there's a move called Skandinasana, which is like a very deep side lunge move. Then you go side to side, and it really hurt on that knee. But my left knee, I was able to do it no problem. And I did not like that. You know, I was like, that is not cool. So I pushed through it, and there's some discomfort. And then I went to the gym too, and I tried doing a single leg squat, which was always easier. It's been easy for me as a rock climber. You use that a lot in rock climbing. You rock onto one leg and then use it to push up. So again, left leg, single leg squat, no problem. The right leg, I had like not even half a range of motion like before. It just felt like I was going to collapse. So I figured out how to, you know, use some support, like some poles and wall and whatnot. And I built my range of motion back up. And then I'm back to feeling like I'm in my 20s again, which is amazing, you know. And like I was almost ready to accept that I was just gonna have a bum knee now. And then my left knee was starting to hurt too because I was overcompensating. But by recognizing that there was that deficiency in the range of motion through atrophy, that's what it was, you know, like everything atrophied. There's no longer the support muscles around that knee. And once I built all that back up, everything just fixed itself.
You know, there's so many kind of analogous paths between rehabilitation and life. You know, one of the things that I'm hearing you say, and you say, well, like I say it every day, multiple times a day, you have to poke the bear. And poke the bear means you have to go into some level of pain in order to allow the tissue to adapt or habituate to that particular movement or position. So the side lunge that we're talking about, it created some level of discomfort, and very counterintuitively, it's moving towards pain and not away from pain that gives your body a chance to adapt, so that it doesn't hurt anymore. And you can apply this to life, because sometimes whatever it is that we have fear over, instead of running away from it, we have to slowly go towards it in order to realize what its kind of true effects are and slowly habituate whatever it is to that. But sometimes we could overload ourselves with kind of these false narratives that it's going to break us and hurt us. And that's why we have to slowly move towards it so that we can realize that it's actually not as bad. Essentially, moving towards fear slowly makes us less hyper vigilant. When we're hyper vigilant, we're constantly scanning the environment because we're afraid that we're going to get hurt. So moving towards fear, and I think what you did intuitively, which is, I think it's interesting because most people wouldn't do that, but what you did was you offered your need, that MCL, the opportunity to adapt to that stress by moving towards that level of discomfort or fear, if you will.
So, and I'm running out of time, and I apologize, but I think that it really it's fun. I feel like it's coming to full circle, and you said it. That that's why I love exercise, is that you can apply a lot of the lessons that you learn through exercise into life. And yeah, there are decisions that you have to make in life that are just so painful. Yeah, they're heartbreaking, and that sometimes you have to go into the darkness to get into the light, and that's a cliche. And I don't know, I say a lot of cliches lately because it's like they're true. And so yeah, I think that's the main thing, is sometimes we have to make painful decisions. Sometimes we have to make decisions to head out into the darkness, to face our fears. And I mean, it couldn't be more applicable than today. Just what's going on. Like it took a while for me to really care about going on in the world with this, to be honest. I can put my head in the sand in a lot of ways, and I don't like watching the news. I don't like watching things that are overly sensationalized. But yeah, at this point, this has all had an effect on us. So yeah, I do actually have to get going. I'm getting texts and calls here about where I am. I should probably.
Well, Todd, thank you for coming on. Ivan, your mic is muted again. I didn't mute it this time. Let me see. But Todd, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And you touched on a lot of concepts that have been recurring. You added some new things in what we're trying to discuss as far as this bigger conversation of resiliency and getting through things. A great testimonial that you have. So thank you, Todd. I'm not sure how to unmute Ivan here. It's not working. But I'm sure he would thank you as well. Thank you for your time. And there you go, Ivan. You want to add something, Ivan?
Todd, thank you so much. No, that was great. I appreciate your time with us this morning, despite the technical issues on your end and our end as well.
Yeah, I knew I should have had you email me sooner, so I could have sorted things out on my end a little better, but it worked out.
All right,
Todd.
All right, take care. All right, bye.
Jose. So,
hey, what's going on?
So it's always interesting because I think one thing that we spoke about last week is that we want to kind of hear these stories and make some actionable summary. All right, like if anyone were listening today, what could they take away so that it could influence their lives in a positive way when they're dealing with adversity? So
I think Todd,
what some actionable items are, what would you say they are?
I mean, I think Todd summarized it himself towards the middle of the conversation, where he said, taking out the expectation out of things and kind of seeing where they go takes a lot of the fear and anxiety out of it. So, I think that's important in going through these issues, through these tests. I think that's a big what's the word I'm looking for? Something that you should have presence of mind. Just removing the expectations. That doesn't mean not having goals, but just taking out the expectations that let you be more in the moment than if you're building that anxiety of what should be or what should happen. What'd you get out of it?
I can't help to think that, and I always say this, but the dose makes the poison, right? Like, you do want to be aspirational, and part of being aspirational is making goals. But you can't, at the same time, you can't overwhelm yourself with what may be. You have to immerse yourself in the now in order to materialize positive outcomes later on. And you can apply that to, backward thinking as well. You have to, as much as you can, immerse yourself in now. It's kind of comforting to hear that, like, when you have less expectations, you could get through the day a little easier. I do like that. That definitely has some level of comfort.
Some peace. Peace.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's actionable, aside from lowering your expectations, is moving towards fear.
I don't know if lowering the expectation is exactly what he meant. It's just taking it out. I mean, you still want to work towards a goal, but it's just tying it in so deeply into the situation where you have this anxiety of what you expect to come. I think that's a little bit different than lowering. But go ahead. You were going to say your next point.
No, and then the next thing is just moving counterintuitively towards your fear. You got to move towards your fear, not away from your fear, because moving towards your fear allows the individual to appraise the source of the fear. I think that's important, because sometimes what we think could cause danger is not actually dangerous, right? In order to appraise something that's potentially dangerous, we have to move towards it. If we move away from it, it could make us hypervigilant. It could make us grow even more fearful of whatever endeavor we're trying to look for. So if someone is aspiring or to do something, whatever, start a business, start a relationship, get married, we have to slowly move towards that thing that creates fear in order to, as best we can, create this objective appraisal of what the source of it is. Because a lot of times, this fear-driven behavior is this, and we magnify things beyond what they are. And that immobilizes us. That creates kinesiophobia. So go towards the thing that causes a little fear. Go towards the thing. That's an action item.
That's something in his in Todd's testimony that he didn't put it in those words, but what he explained is that he didn't stay stuck. He started dating. He went online. He saw family. He didn't let that door just slam in his face, and he didn't stay in a room. He kept going, and that's part of what you're talking about now, as far as leaning into it. I know when we speak to Mike Gomez, he's big on leaning into it, and that's part of it. You can't let fear immobilize you. Yeah, you're right. That's a good actionable item.
Yeah, and then I think there were 3 actionable items, but the other thing is, that experience that he had witnessing that death of the young woman, that's really, you know, I feel uncomfortable even just talking about it because it's someone's life, it's someone's relative. But it does give us a sense of how fragile life is. And, you know, if there's anything that we could glean from this COVID pandemic, this period, is that life definitely is fragile. Like, I lost some people that I know. And it just makes you realize, you know, you got to appreciate what you have. Essentially, it kind of forces you to have more gratitude, because you never know if we're going to have that opportunity again to do the things that we enjoy.
No, absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we should end it a few minutes early so we can figure out some of these technical difficulties that we've had. And good. That was an awesome testimonial, man. That was good. And I think we'll talk next week.
Outro music. Outro.
Where is our outro?